Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the next in TTA Spotlight series of training events. So today we've got Yuekun and QT from Class In, who are here to talk about expanding business in Southeast Asia. I'm going to do the minimum of input, apart from say that these guys know Southeast Asia very well. Definitely, it's very worthwhile picking their brains. And if you do have questions at the end, then I'm sure Yuekun and QT are happy to take questions towards the end if there's a few minutes. But yeah, really pleased to have them offering this session for us. So thanks so much, guys, and over to you.
Thank you, John. Good morning, everyone. First of all, big thanks to John, Sam, Julius, and the entire TTA family to have us here today, this morning, to share with you what we have learned in Southeast Asia or just the general APAC market. So I'm just going to do a quick presentation, and let me just try to share my window over here. So if you can see my screen, just give me a quick nod, or better yet, if you can send me thumbs up, anything, so that I will be able to get notified that you guys are okay. Perfect, amazing. Okay, so as you can see, the title of today's presentation is about tutoring market insights in China and Vietnam. So first of all, you might be wondering, who are you to tell us about anything about the China and Vietnam education market or tutoring market? So perhaps a quick self-introduction and also introduction to my colleague is in order. My name is Yuekun. I work for Class In, and Class In is a leading edtech provider. And we were first originated in 2014, so this year is actually our 10th year anniversary. It started off as a virtual classroom software, and we later on expanded into building a learning management system, cloud drive, and even educational hardware. So far we have covered the geography of China, Singapore, Japan, Korea, Vietnam, Philippines, Indonesia, and increasingly so we're expanding our footprint in Europe and the US. So this is where we are, right? Some of the stuff that you might be able to see on the screen kind of give you an idea of what we have been able to accomplish so far. So one thing that we're super proud of is that currently worldwide, we're working with 60,000 plus organizations. So it might be public, private schools, it might be universities, or to a large extent, tutoring companies that work just like yourself, who provide pure online or partly online, partly face-to-face supplementary education services. So that's where we stand. We spent the majority of our time building our business in Asia for a very simple reason, because over the last decade, there's a huge influx of funding into this market to build the private education sector. Plus, the cultural inclination to value educational achievements has really floated the boat to make it the hotspot for private tutoring to really take place. So as a result, we have worked with gigantic unicorn companies in China and also nurtured a lot of soon-to-be unicorn companies in Vietnam. So here we are talking about what we have done before, talking about what we have seen before, in hopes that this may provide some value for you, and so that you may consider working together with us to expand your footprint and provide your value in those markets down the line. So we're gonna divide this into two parts. First of all, I'm gonna talk about what we have learned in China, what may have already been some distant history, and what are some of the new things that has risen up over the last couple of years. And then my colleague QT, who is our Southeast Asia director, will come up and she's gonna share with you what she has found in Vietnam. She's the person that single-handedly built our entire business in Vietnam. So I think there's no better person than herself to share that with you. So we're very lucky to have her here today. Okay, so first of all, let's dive into China. It is obviously, as we all know, a very gigantic market, right? So I'm really only going to share the small portion of the numbers that are most relevant to UK education providers. I'm just going to make this window slightly larger to make sure that you guys are able to see what I'm showing here. So first of all, just some numbers really quickly. Number of international schools in China is in the thousands. And this number is continuing to increase despite what you may have seen on the news where the government allegedly dislike international education, so on and so forth. As much as that was on the headlines, what's behind the scenes and what's really taking place suggests probably something otherwise. We have seen that, from 2019, the number of total students enrolled in schools offering international curriculum was somewhere around the 350,000 range. And 4 years later, we now have seen that the total number of enrollment has grown to 500K. And according to ISC research, they expect this number to rise to 800,000. So just to put these numbers into perspective, what does it mean? Across the world, as of January 2023, there are about 13,000 international schools worldwide. And China alone has about 1,000 of them. In total, there are 6.5 million students enrolled in international schools. China has about 500,000. So in a nutshell, this is one singular market that basically captures almost 10% of the entire world market in terms of international education. And what's really cool about this is that you may wonder, okay, so what does that have to do with tutoring? Well, 46.2% of students receive extra tutoring. Doesn't matter what kind of school they're enrolled in. They can be enrolled in international schools. They can be enrolled in private education that's under the domestic curriculum. They can be enrolled in, state-funded public schools. Across the board, 46% of them, almost 1 in every 2 students receives tutoring. And the highest spending markets are what we call the tier 1 cities. So the ones that you probably know the best, right? Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, Shenzhen. These are the 4 cities that you hear about the most. Whenever someone says, I'm going to China, chances are they're probably going to one of these places, right? So how big is the market? Is it actually a market where it is financially viable for us to explore? Just to put it into perspective, average annual household spending on tutoring per year, and this is a 2019 national average, is about 1,100 pounds. So not so much, right? It doesn't sound like much. However, that's a national average, and you have to consider that this is a country with huge geography and varying economic developments. So some parts of the country may not have as high price levels. Some parts of the country may not have just as high, living standards. But as a whole, on average, 1,100 pounds per year spent, and this is not spending on education. This is just spending on tutoring. And if we look at tier 1 cities, the 4 cities that I have mentioned above, you can see that annual household spending on tutoring anywhere between 1,400 to 2,600 pounds per year. There's about 22% of them, 22% of households spend this much. And the top 21% spend on average per year 2,600 to 3,800 pounds per year. That's very much equivalent, and perhaps you can argue even more compared to some of the average UK families would spend purely on tutoring. Not talking about just education overall, right? And very interestingly, UK companies or UK education providers have a natural advantage to capture the audience in this market. Because if you look at the most popular subjects, and if you also look at the most popular qualifications, you'll notice that these are highly aligned with what we already provide domestically here in the UK. The most popular qualification, international qualification tutoring in China, number 1 is A-level. And the reason behind that is because A-level provides that level of flexibility for students who are from a country that neither takes the UK nor the US or nor the Australian nor any European curriculum to be able to apply for universities worldwide. If I take A-level curriculum, I still have the option to go to the US. Plus, my A-level grades 3 or 4 of them can be submitted to UCAS, which can help me to apply for a UK university the normal way. So A-level tend to be the more welcomed curriculum, followed by AP, IB, and IGCSE as the foundational course is obviously the stepping stone into A-levels. And when we look at different subjects, if we ignore the top subject over here, which is English language, obviously we cannot ignore it, but if we do take that away, then you will notice that the rest of the ranking is pretty much exactly the same as what we find in the UK. Whenever we look into private tutoring, we will notice that maths, chemistry, physics, biology, and perhaps sometimes, less popular subjects like geography, history, etc., are on the list, right? So in China, because Chinese students don't speak English by default, so the #1 foundational subject that they all need to receive tutoring on is English language, and beyond that, they take everything else, other subjects, exactly the same as how we find it here for kids in the UK. There's a bit of a bad news if you are a large-scale online tutoring provider, or if you're just an individual online tutor, because in 2021 there was a big controversial education reform that took place in China, which essentially outlawed online cross-national tuition. So what it means is that if you're a tutor that's based in the UK trying to provide pure online learning support to a child that's based in China, that's no longer okay. If you want to provide that, you would have to be physically based over there in order to do it. But many would argue, if I'm already there, why don't I just do it face-to-face instead of online, right? So that is a big hindrance. Providers and tutors must be based in China. That was kind of, the hard line that was drawn from that. However, some people still believe that they're above the law, and some people still, you can find this on all corners of the internet. There are thousands of Facebook pages, YouTube channels dedicated to telling individual tutors how they can advertise their courses through different social media platforms and still reach families in China, so on and so forth. However, I personally do not advocate for tempting with the law, so I wouldn't necessarily suggest this on this occasion, and I personally wouldn't stand behind it. However, if you do feel like you're kind of a Scarface character, then you're more than welcome to look into those, but we're not going to talk about that today. What I do want to share with you guys here is that what we have found is increasingly rising opportunities for international providers to provide their content. Because just like I said before, international education as a whole has not waned down in this market. In fact, it's still steadily growing. It's just that people don't necessarily talk about it as in such an exciting way as we used to talk about it before. Doesn't mean it's not growing. Doesn't mean it's just got completely wiped out. It is still going, and it's still growing very, very strongly. And the main thing that the market is really, really looking to acquire from the international market is content. And what I would like to outline here is that the blue ocean market is AI plus content, right? Because AI is the #1 thing that's kind of like almost revolutionizing everything that we do these days. So a lot of companies are looking to build interactive learning delivery with the use of OpenAI API services to create interesting content packages, AI courses, etc., etc. So that's a big plus. And a lot of that content, a lot of that methodology, pedagogical consideration, it's still coming from where we are now, right? Which is the UK. So I think that fundamental demand and supply relationship has not changed. It's just what has changed is just how we can actually supply our services to a very lucrative market that has changed its rules recently. So some of the things I would like to point out to you guys, just in case if you are in the position to provide things like this. For example, #1, massive open online course style master classes. So recorded videos and things, self-directed courses, right? If we chop things up into bits and pieces, and then we offer clear instructions, perhaps the students, the learners will be able to kind of go through it themselves. Educational supplementary content, that's in high demand. Professional education, CPD for educators, is also in high demand. The reason being that obviously China doesn't have a whole lot of international educators. It has a good number of them. I think right as of 2023, there are about almost 40,000 international educators employed in China-based international schools. However, that number is not gonna, suffice and easily supply the whole market. So a lot of international education, a lot of international provision is still being provided by local Chinese educators. And these people need professional development. They need continuous professional development coming from overseas, coming from high quality sources to help them become better educators, provide them with the right methodology, the right delivery, the right knowledge and know-how to actually run these courses that are given, which are not, innately theirs. So this is something that if you have a good methodology in-house to train your tutors, perhaps you can consider developing a course that you can provide to train up tutors over there. And like I said before, AI enhanced interactive learning content, right? So I can think of a good number of companies in the UK that has run very successful stories, whether it's in maths, whether it's in English, different things, different little apps that we have on our phone. If you have those kind of content, maybe consider building a structure behind it so that you have a little application or a little digital booklet so that people will be able to take up your offer and learn in their own time. And obviously, if you're someone that has the resources and have the connections and you want to run a teacher supply agency, go for it, because right now is probably the best time. Teacher recruitment rates are super, super high. International teachers receive amazing compensation in China, and that level has just gone up and up and up because of the 2021 education reform. So if you're someone that has the capabilities to do it, good luck to you. Go ahead and go for it. And if you're an individual tutor who want to maybe go travel and use this as a way to fund your adventures, this might also be a pathway for you to go forward. Like I said, reason why I wanted to bring out these is because, again, I want to draw your attention on the qualifications and subjects. Most popular qualification being A-level, and most popular subjects being the ones that are highly aligned with what we offer here, give you a great starting place compared to anybody in the rest of this world to provide high quality content into this market. So I would say, if you have the capability, if you have the ambition, don't sleep on it. So to actually help international education providers do this, what we have done at Klassen is that we decided to build a bridge. So I'm going to be very brief on this. Basically, we have launched a new website late last year called Tutoring, and we're entering into a lot of very interesting conversations with UK education providers here who can provide professional development courses, who can provide interactive content to host their courses on our platform, and we be the one to help them interface with China-based potential customers. It might be schools, it might be supplementary providers, it might be individuals, so that they will be able to share their content, monetize their content, and also they can actually collaborate with their partners in China to build new courses that are better localized, and then see how those courses are implemented in the day-to-day learning inside classrooms. So if any of you might be interested in this, we're happy to continue the conversation afterwards. Why are we the ones to do it? It's mainly because in China's $60 billion education digitization industry, we are so far the strongest B2B brand in learning systems. And later on, when my colleague QT will share what she has found, you'll very quickly find that we are also in a very similar situation in Vietnam. So if you're interested in Vietnam, I would say also get in touch with us. In total, just in China alone, we serve about 2 million teachers, both in the tutoring sector as well as K-12 school sector, about almost 30 regional offices. There are in total about 100 cities in China that has the population over 1 million people. So we cover obviously the biggest of the biggest, the top 27. And we have a great K-12 school access rate, which, if you provide those kind of content, these probably will be the people that you want to speak with. So that's what we have found, just in terms of what has changed and what's new in China. I know there's a lot of confusion over, the education reform that took place 2 years ago. So I hope that after today, after this brief discussion of what has transpired, it will provide you more clarity on what we can do and what we cannot do. One very interesting case study I would like to share, based on what we have learned before, is that this is a company that has worked with Classin for about 6 years. And what they have done is that they have built a very interesting business model where they sell local and deliver nationwide. And what I mean by that is this structure that I'm showing on the right-hand side over here might seem a little bit too complicated. So just to kind of oversimplify things a little bit, basically what they have an operational headquarters, they have a teaching center, which can be based at the same place as their headquarters. And then what they have done is that they have built numerous local offices nationwide, right? I have said before, there are 100 cities in China that has population over 1 million. What they have done is that they have built almost 300 offices in cities all across the country. So those local satellite offices only consist of a very, very small sales, marketing, and customer success team. So basically what they do is that they directly interface with the parents, talk about what their courses can provide to the parents, discuss any ongoing issues, deal with any kind of complaints, but everything else is done from the HQ. So all of the teaching and learning delivery is done purely online from the HQ, and all of their virtual operations coordinations are done from the HQ. The satellite offices everywhere are very light operational offices that mostly just take care of marketing and sales. The reason why this is a very interesting model is because when we get into online tutoring, we can easily fall into this interesting fallacy that we think, if I'm doing my tutoring online, I do everything online. So all of my marketing and sales and everything is done online. What that have caused is that the online traffic is becoming more and more expensive. If you want to do your Google SEO correctly, if you want to do your Google SEM correctly, if you even want to venture forward and do a little bit of digital advertising or do some kind of other forms of online exposure to really widen your reach, then you realize that the cost to do all of these virtual outreaches become potentially more expensive than sometimes the lifetime value that you can extract from a particular student throughout their entire time of enrollment with you. So that actually creates a very bad business case, because the more we grow, the more we will lose. Whereas when we look at regional offices, when we hire a person or a small team of personnel that may only require a much smaller or much lower income rate compared to where we're based. When we look at the rent in different geographies, we might actually come up with a conclusion that doing that and providing that face-to-face contact with our customers would offer a much, much better yield and also much, much better customer experience for us. So I know there are a number of tutoring companies in the UK that already do this. If you're someone that's looking to transition from purely face-to-face tutoring to online, or if you're someone that's looking to expand your outreach for your online tutoring operations, I think this might be something that you want to consider. And if you want to see more numbers and more specifics on how this particular company has done it, we have a very detailed case study show you. So if you're interested, send me an email afterwards, and I'm happy to share with you. The only reason why I can disclose these numbers is obviously because companies like this no longer operate in China because of because they have been impacted by the education reform. That being said, this is something that might serve as a viable model if we look into the UK market. Yeah. And that's all I have to share today on some market insights on China. So I would like to welcome my colleague QT to provide her sharing on what she has learned and found in Vietnam.
Yuekun, just so quickly before we move on, are we possible to take a few questions on the China market very, very quickly now?
Yeah, sure.
So I think we had one from Nicola Kelting and one from Emily Bacon. So Nicola, do you want to go first?
Hi, yeah, I was just curious, with the change in the law in its tuition specifically, does that include coaching as well or not?
Right. So this is something that you have to be very, very careful about because you're really treading in a gray area.
Yeah.
And I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to give you any legally binding advice. But what I can say is that there are a lot of people that do try to provide coaching.
Yeah.
But then they try to kind of steer clear from any interaction that can relate them to the education sphere, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So that's something that you have to be very, very careful about. And there are still, the thing is, the numbers are high, people are many. There's no viable way for the law enforcement agencies to really track down every single person that's providing whatever kind of online services to millions of families nationwide. So chances are you probably will be able to do it. But again, like I said before, it is above the law to some extent. So you have to be very, very careful about what you're doing.
Understood. Yeah. It was just a thought from when you were saying doing a masterclass that is self-paced. If you then have that with a coaching system, it's much more effective because then the students have actually got the connection and they're making those reflexive processes, but you're not being specific to the content. So it was just a query, really, not fully understanding, whether it was a definition of tuition or whether it was a provider from outside of China that is the difference. So it's the provision not being in China is the key thing.
I think that is one of the key things. Okay. And Nicola, if you're interested in doing this model, I think there is a way forward because there are a lot of education service companies in China that have the capability to provide, in-country services.
Yes.
It is really down to if you're willing to share your expertise and provide the training to train up their people. So essentially, they are agents who deliver on your behalf. Yes. In that case, you're not really in the crossfire of legal issues.
Okay, that's really interesting. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Great, thanks.
And I think we've got two more questions, and then we'll move on to QT because I'm interested to hear about Vietnam myself as well. So Emily Bacon first, and then whoever the person is from Prominent Education, you'll be the last person to ask a question about China. So Emily.
Thanks, John, and thanks, Yuekun, so much for sharing those insights. It was really interesting to hear about China at the moment. I'm just wondering about the market, especially in those tier 1 regions. Would you say that they're already quite saturated with UK tutoring agencies, or do you think there's scope for new agencies which offer sort of that UK tutoring to emerge?
I would say... thank you, Emily, for your question. Actually, that's a very, very interesting one because what we have seen right before the education reform came down was that market competition has gone to a point where everyone is overspending and people are not really holding back in terms of what they invest, and they don't care about ROIs anymore. So that might be a general indicator that the market is entering into a space where competition is too fierce for new entries to successfully navigate. However, I think over the last 2 years, there has been large amounts of exits from the market as well. Because when the reform took place, a lot of companies did not know what to do. They did not know what they can and cannot do. So first of all, the reform killed a lot of providers overnight. Secondly, a lot of people in fear of clipping over the wire, I would say, decided to then move away from the market. So if you're really looking to provide something that's viable, that's valuable, I think now is a time. Perhaps you wouldn't find a better time than now to actually look for people who can work together with you to establish that. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. That's really helpful.
No problem.
And prominent education. Last question before we go on to QT in Vietnam, please.
Hiya, thank you. I just had one more quick question regarding the kind of new regulations in China. So say that we had an office based in China, but then we had tutors tutoring from England. Would that still be viable if we had a China-based office, essentially?
Thank you for your question. I think that's still not going to be viable, because really what the new law has dictated is that the person who is running the lessons has to be based there. So it doesn't matter if you have China office or not. You can very much have no office whatsoever. But if you live there, then you can essentially provide that service. If you don't, then you cannot. So I would highly suggest that you can consider perhaps changing the nature of your business from someone who directly provide tuition services to the families to someone who can provide professional coaching and development services to the local companies. So in a sense, you're much lighter and you're not doing B2C sales, which cost you high resources, and you turn into a actually much more profitable and scalable mode of business for yourself. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
No worries.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, guys. Thanks so much, Yuekun, for the appraisal of China. Indeed. Pass over straight to QT, please, to continue the discussion for Vietnam as well. Thanks.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Yuekun. Hi, everyone. So my name is Tuong. I'm Vietnamese. So in short, this is QT. I'm the colleague of Yuekun. We are in class in, and let me share with you about Vietnam market. Let me share my screen. Do you see my screen now?
Yes, QT, we do.
Okay. So, wait a minute. Okay. So, to introduce with you about Vietnam, compared to China, Vietnam is just a tiny country, just like one province of China. We have the total population of 99.3 million people in this month, March 2024. But Vietnam is considered a young country where we have 24% of the populations are under 14 years old. The GDP per capita is around 4K USD. However, I think with Vietnam, we share the same culture with China, where parents really appreciate education. So even though the GDP per capita is quite low, but they can spend up to 20% of the household income for the education of their children. And in Vietnam, we have two school systems. One is the public system and one is the private system. So the private system here, it includes the international schools, but it only make up 6% of the total school system in Vietnam. And if you want to ask how many international schools in Vietnam, there are only around 70 plus international schools. International schools in Vietnam are mainly for foreigners, but with private school, beside the local textbook curriculum that they are using, they also use a kind of international curriculum which is inspired by UK curriculum. That's why in Vietnam, if you come to tutoring segment, you will see that the most popular tutoring subject is also English, and the most popular qualification will be UK related qualifications like IELTS. With kids, you will have Cambridge qualifications like flyers, things like that. And in the recent years, there are also an increasing need for A-level IGCSEs for overseas studies and also for students in Vietnam to apply for universities in Vietnam, because from around 5 or 6 years ago, universities in Vietnam have started to accept international qualifications like A-level, IB, SAT, IGCSE. And like Yuekun say, Vietnam is quite maybe expecting upcoming unicorn in edtech in the region. Some signs for you is that according to the recent evaluation, so last year the edtech market alone is around 3 billion US dollars value in the market, with the annual growth rate of 20% annually. And if I'm not wrong, in 2023 and 2022, around 70 VC have funded their money into the market to up to 400 million US dollars. So with a small country, but this amount of number is quite sustainable for the edtech to grow. I would like to share some more information with you in case you haven't heard much about Vietnam, the small country in Southeast Asia. So with the small population, but we are the 5th largest group of foreign students studying in the US. And in last year, there are more than 21.9K Vietnamese students coming to the US. And in Southeast Asian country, we are not the biggest in terms of population, but we are the biggest in terms of sending students overseas. So last year, in the last couple of years, we have sending more than 132,000 Vietnamese students studying overseas. And in that, we have sending around nearly 4,000 students to the UK. So that's also the reason why when international companies, when they come to Southeast Asia region to expand the market, Vietnam would be the top in the list. So talking about classing in Vietnam a little bit. So the growth of classing in Vietnam really goes along with the growth of edtech in Vietnam. So we've been in the market for 3 years only, but we have been the backbone of the top edtech in the market. So if you remember, I've shared with you in recent year, Vietnam edtech received around 400 million US dollars for funding, but most of those cases are our clients, like eQuest have received 120 million US dollars 2023, 130 million US dollars 2021, and Quest, one of the biggest education group, is our client. Or other small edtech coming up, like Edupia, Vui Học, Clevi, or Galaxy Education, they're all our clients. I would like to share with you some of the case studies from Vietnam. So Yuekun has shared with you one case study with one client growing with classing in China up to 2,000 students. So similar stories are happening in Vietnam. So right before COVID happening, is also the time where edtech in Vietnam started to grow a lot. Edupia is one of them. So they worked with us to build the whole online business. So before the online live classes, they just had like application for playing the works or learning vocabularies. But when using Classin, they started to build live lessons with teachers. So Edupia, in this year, they have grown from 1,500 teachers to more than 2,500 teachers with us. And every year, they have raised a new round of fundraising. A second case study I would like to share with you is Speak Up, Speak Well. So edtech market in Vietnam has started around 17 years ago. And Galaxy Education was one of the first, very first edtech in Vietnam at the time, with the format like just a forum where students can come and ask questions and anybody can answer. We give the answers. But also around 3 or 4 years ago, they started the online live lessons, and also they started working with us. So until now, Speakwell, Galaxy Education, they have applied ClassIn throughout their business lines on the English for kids, IELTS, English for adults, and other subjects tutoring like math or coding. They are use ClassIn to deliver the online lessons. And also in Vietnam, with ClassIn, we are proud that we are kind of highly trusted brand where we collaborate with a lot of other partners, especially here you see like Apple, EF, or some other like Global Exam, Active Life, or Canvas. When they first enter Vietnam market, they are actively coming to work with us for collaboration to create an ecosystem for edtech providers in Vietnam. So if you are planning to visit Vietnam this year, we are really welcome if you come to Vietnam in around June or July. The weather is nice, and we also host this conference, the Classroom Technology Exhibition, where we invite thought leaders from the government, top edtechs in the market, expert in the regions to share about the trends, also share about the teaching methodology, what we expect in the market. So that's basically something about Vietnam. So if you would like to ask anything more about Vietnam, it's very welcome.
Thanks very much, QT. Really appreciate your assistance. And when are the dates for the Classroom Technology Exhibition, please? Because obviously we've got the National Tutoring Awards here in the UK on the 21st of June, so hopefully it's not going to clash.
I think it will be in July.
Oh, okay. Then we are lucky. Well, do you know what time in July is?
Yeah.
Do we know when in July?
Let me check again with the team.
Okay, you're gonna check and let us know.
I'll let Yuekun know and share with you about the information.
No, that's great. Thanks very much for all your insights on the Vietnamese market as well. We've got some questions. So Emily first, and then Rebecca.
Thanks, John, and thanks, QT. Kind of the same question that I said to you, Ken, as well, but I'm wondering about sort of the market and sort of how many other UK tutoring agencies are already sort of in this space. As in, like, do lots of people have offices out there, or do you think that there are lots of agencies that just sort of advertise their services online to Vietnamese markets, and then they sort of have online lessons with UK tutors? It would be great to have a bit of visibility on that if possible.
Yeah, thank you, Emily, for the question. With the Vietnam education market, it's quite dominant by local providers. So like the list I've shared with you, all of these big players in the market, they are all local players. Mm-hmm. So it means that if you come from the UK, also the same suggestion with Yuekun for China market, these providers, they are looking for a lot of teachers. So if you could collaborate, maybe provide the teachers or provide the teacher trainings for those edtech players, I think it would be easier for the operation because of the language barrier, also the local law regulations, and also for the advertisement, because I think in Asia, Southeast Asia in general, the brand trust or the trust in terms of relationship, they know you, they know who you are. These more than is the first thing will come to the mind when they come to select who they're going to study with.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. And thank you so much for sort of going into that in a bit more detail. I also just had another question. Apologies if I'm jumping the gun here, John. I hope it's okay.
No, go ahead, Emily, go on. And then
thank
Rebecca
you.
and then Nicola.
Perfect. I was just obviously with the stats that you were saying with the number of students who are sort of going abroad to study in the US for college, do you think that there will be an increase in the number of students coming to the UK, or do you think it's predominantly focused on going to the US at the moment?
Yeah, I think also to share with you, I used to work for the British Council to promote UK education before working for Class In. So UK education is also UK is a good market in Vietnam, especially in the graduate, because with graduate it only take 1 year to study master in the UK, but the number of undergraduate students is also increasing. I think it's because the relationship between the two countries, like UK government also promote Vietnam as a destination, and also in Vietnam, local like embassy. I mean, the UK embassy here also do very good job of promoting UK image, UK education as a destination to Vietnam market. So more and more people, and I think now UK, they have been more open in terms of receiving international students. So more people are coming, I think.
Well, no, that makes complete sense. And thank you again for answering those.
Brilliant. Thanks so much. And if we have Rebecca next, and then Nicola, please. Rebecca.
Hi. So I'm assuming that it's okay for UK tutors to teach from the UK into the Vietnamese market. Yeah. Okay, cool. I have a lot of experience using Classin and working in the China market. And so I'm just wondering, I know you said about collaboration with some of these bigger companies, but also, and you've just mentioned about the British Embassy, I know with the China market, you can get agents that will find students for you and they can work on a commission basis. Is that the same in Vietnam? And where would be the best way of kind of making contact with the agents if that was the way you wanted to go?
I know there are some agency in Vietnam doing that kind of services, but not many. Mainly, I think there are more demand from edtech or local tutoring centers here who are looking for foreigner teachers. So
okay.
So there are more needs on that side.
Is there somewhere that, you know, we can kind of find this information to make contact, or is it best to just sort of have a conversation with you?
I think you can for sure drop us a message, because our clients in Vietnam also ask, like, can you recommend us some teacher source?
And you obviously, QT, you say to them, the Tutors Association, you should come and talk to the Tutors Association all day long.
For sure.
Cool, thank you.
No, thanks so much, Rebecca. Nicola, have you got a question there?
Yes, great. Thank you so much, QT. That was super interesting, all the information you gave us. Just got two brief questions. One of them is, obviously you mentioned English is a big market for tuition. My tuition provision is science. Do you think there's a similar pattern with the China market, going English, maths, and then science subjects in terms of demand, in terms of a growing market for GCSE and A-level for science?
Yeah, I think it's the same. Like after English, it will be science, like math, physics, and chemistry.
Okay.
And you know, like I say, IGCSE A-level, the demand is growing, even though it's quite small now, but more acceptance, so more demand are coming up.
Okay, great stuff. And my other question is there a regional difference between North and South Vietnam? For example, is there much of a market in Hanoi, or is it more southern?
Well, you're so experienced, Nicola. I think you asked that question, you know the answer. Yes, the answer is yes.
I worked in Vietnam a long time ago, so I just wondered if there was still a big difference in different markets between North and South. But my experience is 20 years ago, so yeah, I'm not up to date. So your insight would be really interesting.
Yeah. So, for example, in terms of destination, the South, they will go to the US more, and the North, they will go to the UK more.
So that's historical, perhaps, to do with...
I think so.
Okay. Yeah. All right. That's really interesting. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And also in terms of behaviors, the parents in the North, they care more about the teaching quality.
Okay.
Where in the South, maybe they are more relaxed. Maybe something just international, they will be fancy of. But the Northern people, they will care more what you are teaching.
Yeah.
Who is the teacher, things like that.
Yeah, because my instinct for working in growth into Vietnam is to focus on the North, but that's because my experience was working in the northern regions, and I don't have much experience in the South, but that kind of mirrors what my thinking was. So that's super helpful. Thank you so much.
Really interesting. I mean, I'm not surprised the North don't quite fancy getting stuff from America anymore. The last time they got lots of stuff from America, it was all explosive. So but it's not so much of a surprise. Any more questions for either Yuekun or QT? Emily.
Yep, sorry, me again. Really getting my money's worth in today. I was just wondering if we wanted to learn more about either of your sort of markets in China or Vietnam. John, I know that you said that we could contact the TTA, but would you also be open to perhaps having a further conversation individually, just so we can learn a bit more about sort of, so for us, it would be probably more about like the market and education, consultancies and tuition agencies versus individual tutoring. So would it be okay to sort of contact you guys to see if you'd be open for a call to discuss that further or not?
You'll be greeted with open arms. So
you want to put your contact details in the chat, Yuekun and QT?
Yeah. So actually, what I would suggest you guys to do is I'm gonna put a quick thing here. So if you want to get in touch with us, just simply email to uk@classin.com. So it's a very, very simple way to reach out to us, so that we can basically, you can let us know what your concerns might be, and we will be able to schedule calls and perhaps even meet face to face. QT is based in Vietnam, so obviously she wouldn't be able to have coffee with you, although virtual coffees are mostly welcome. I live in Liverpool, so I'm happy to travel to whatever location you're based in, and we can, talk further and kind of discuss what your priorities are, et cetera, et cetera. And actually, if I may, Emily, I was thinking about your question earlier, and I wanted to just quickly add to what your concerns might be in terms of entering, the two markets, China and Vietnam. I think that the really important thing is for us to sit here in the UK and consider what our unique selling point as education providers are. Regardless of how fierce the market competition over there might be, because we must understand at the end of the day, is supply and demand relationship, right? It's a much broader supply and demand relationship. Yes, the market on the other side, demand side, might be competing quite harshly, but all of that is in that specific market. That we can call it market infighting. They're just trying to grab share of wallet, a share of customers. All of that is irrelevant to us, because we know for a fact that on the supply side, where we are, the numbers are relatively stable, right? We cannot just wake up one day and immediately we have 2 million more people in the UK doing online tutoring, right? That's going to be preposterous, and you can be sure that the quality is not going to be great. So I think what we are very lucky to have is a high reputation and a good method and practice that we can offer to different markets at a considerable premium. And as long as we hold that position, we're always in a good place to explore new markets, regardless of how the local competition might look like. We always have the edge to provide them something that they don't have. So I think in that regard, you don't necessarily have to worry yourself too much. Yeah. And majority of the time, what tend to happen in these markets where the local language isn't English, it is not usually advised for UK providers to go straight in and establish your own local office. That's a very brave move. However, I think majority of the time you are better taken care of to do what Rebecca has done before, which is to work with local agents and local education providers, education companies, so that you essentially supply them with what you have. Again, focusing on our unique selling point and not overextending ourselves. I think that would be the key. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for that. I really appreciate it. And we'll definitely be in touch.
And I just wanted to, John, if you don't mind, I wanted to just take 2 minutes to do a quick promotion of what we do here at ClassIn. So if you guys are interested in sharing your content and your CPD practices, master classes, etc., into the China market, you're more than welcome to get in touch with us and explore the Tutoring platform. This is something that we specifically designed to work with the new regulations. So on that front, you don't risk yourself in any kind of trouble. And if you are looking to, diversify and get into the Vietnam market, ClassIn is a trusted platform. And we also, like QT mentioned before, we run local events and activities. So if you're looking to do your online tutoring through ClassIn, you're more than welcome to get in touch with us. So thank you guys very much for your time and your attention. And if we have any more questions, we're happy to talk.
One more question, last question from Rebecca before we finish. If that's okay, Yuekun. QT?
It's not a question. It's just to say I've been using the ClassIn platform now for the last 5 years, and it's brilliant. And I've just set up a new version for my new English company, and I just found it just so straightforward and easy. It was set up. It's a great platform. So I just want to say that.
Oh, Rebecca, thank you so much. I feel like I now owe you infinite numbers of coffees.
Yeah. And you're only up the road from me, so I'm going to stalk you.
Okay.
I would just like to say, take the opportunity to say a big thank you to Yuekun and QT for hosting this spotlight session for us. So thanks very much, guys. I'm sure we can all say we really appreciate their efforts to support us with this. Really kind of to give up their time to give us a really strong insight into the background behind the Chinese and the Vietnamese market. Obviously, you've got the details there in the chat, uk@classin.com, to get in touch with either Yuekun or QT if you've got more questions, if you want to follow up. It's obviously a really fascinating, interesting area. So I hope people have found a lot to come away with here